Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 2 of the Sportscast. Today we're going to be looking at the top 10 SEC quarterbacks this year. Tua, Burrow, and Fromm are all gone. There might be some new faces on this list. We are combining their talent, their impact on the team, and especially their stats. Since I could not make a decision, we have two number 10s. The first one is Jarrett Guarantano of Tennessee. Both of the top 10s have a chance to be a top 5, but they're just inconsistent. Last year, he threw for over 2,100 yards, 16 touchdowns, 18 interceptions, a 59% completion percentage. He only had 54 rush yards. He's pretty mobile, but does not get to run because he does get sacked a lot. We saw flashes of greatness last year. If he can just put it together, that'd just be good for the whole Tennessee organization. I saw a stat where he was the top quarterback on third down in the entire SEC last year. The other number 10 spot goes to Felipe Franks, the transfer from Florida to Arkansas this past year. He does have an injury, so he's going to need to bounce back from that. He was inconsistent at times when he was on the field. Looking at his stats, threw for almost 2,500 yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 58% completion percentage. He ran for 350 yards and 7 touchdowns. He has the talent. He's just got to put it all together. Taking up the number 9 spot, we have John Rhys Plumlee. He may not even be the starter at Ole Miss, and he's definitely not the best passer, but he's an amazing runner. I mean, just look at those stats. He ran for over 1,000 yards. He had over 100 more rushing yards than he did passing yards. He was splitting time, though. He only had 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a 53% completion percentage, but he ran for 12 touchdowns, so you got to kind of take what you can get. Coming at number 8, we have another runner, Terry Wilson. He was injured last year, but his stats in 2018, he threw for 1,800 yards, 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He ran pretty well, 547 yards and 4 touchdowns. But last year, all Kentucky did was run because they had a wide receiver at quarterback. And I think that more running will happen this year. And that offense could be dangerous if Terry does step up. Next up on the list, we have Myles Brennan of LSU. His career stats, he's on 600 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a 60% completion percentage. He did have 41 rush yards in 2019. We obviously don't know much about him. He's definitely a pocket passer, though. He has talent around him. But he's no Joe Burrow, and he has a really good arm. Yeah, that's all you really need to know about Myles Brennan. We'll see what he can do this year. Next up is Bo Nix of Auburn. Some have him at the number 1 or 2 spot in the SEC. Some think he shouldn't be on the list. He was very bad on the road last year, but that was just as a freshman. His stats were good. He threw for 2,500 yards, 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, ran for 313, 7 touchdowns. He makes good decisions, and he's a pretty good runner. He's just got to do better on the road, and he'll be pretty good. Next up is Kellen Mond of Texas A&M. He was worse in 2019 than he was in 2018. Not sure what happened there. He threw for almost 2,900 yards, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, ran for just over 500 yards and 8 touchdowns. He is a bit of an underrated runner, in my opinion. He did lose some receivers, but it's a big tight end team down there in Texas A&M, so I think they will be able to bounce back from that. Next up is Mac Jones of Alabama. The question is, will he even start, really? His stats last year were good, filling in for Tua Tagovailoa, over 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a really good pass rating at 186.8. He's very efficient, and 2 of those 3 interceptions were pick sixes against Auburn. So if you take those out, he went pretty good. He will always have talent around him, and it's just a question of what he can do with that. Coming in at number 3, we have Kyle Trask. He wasn't supposed to be the starter last year, but due to the injury from Felipe Franks, he came in and performed phenomenally. Close to 3,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 156.1 passer rating. He was third team All-SEC. And when they went to LSU, Florida, it was going to be a shootout. And I think that Trask did stick with Burrow throughout that entire game. Coming in at number 2 is Jamie Newman. He is the transfer from Wake Forest. His stats are pretty good. Threw for 2,800 yards, 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Only 61% completion percentage. He did run well, 574 yards, 6 touchdowns. He played good without SEC talent. He's very competitive, and I think he's very clutch too when it does come down to it. So we'll just see how he does in a much tougher environment. Next up is KJ Costello. He is the number 1 quarterback in the SEC. Last year he was injured, so there's lots of unknowns, but his stats at Stanford in 2018 were pretty good. Threw for over 3,500 yards, almost 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and 155 passer rating. There are lots of unknowns from him, and I think he could be a potential NFL quarterback. Paired with Mike Leach in that air raid offense, I think he will be phenomenal at Mississippi State, and they're definitely a team to watch out for. So there you have it, my top 10 SEC quarterbacks for this year. There are a couple more I could have included. Helinski of South Carolina, I just don't think he has the offense to move forward, but he was impressive as a freshman. You could even go to the backups for some of these teams. Bryce Young at Bama and some other names could easily make this list as backups. But thank you as always for watching. See you next time on the cast.